Hello everyone, and welcome to another mini Sky Tonight. So after hearing some of the news recently, I decided to throw my hat into the ring and discuss the idea of flat Earth versus spherical Earth. Is our Earth a disk or is it a beautiful sphere? And I like to present some of the history of where we get the concept of a flat Earth and how that idea has transpired through the ages. But I ultimately want to present strong evidence to say our Earth is a beautiful sphere, and I like to call it the beautiful blue marble. So let's dive right into it. So the history. Many people back in the ancient times would just simply look out towards the horizon and record what they see. To them, the Earth was flat. And it's understandably so, because think of it this way. Imagine being an ant, tiny little ant, on the Epcot globe in Disney World. To that little ant, you're just so tiny compared to this huge, gigantic globe, everything looks flat. And so for them, when they just looked towards the horizon, everything looked flat because they were trying to record what they saw. So they created a world about what they saw. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was a first attempt to understand our world. That's the great thing about science is basically you can get it wrong the first time, but still keep going and keep going to change it, to learn from it, to keep exploring, to keep learning. I mean, from ancient Egypt, where they thought the Earth was just a circular disc surrounded by water, Israel had this disc floating on water with an arched firmament. You had Asia, which had this kind of like a model of an egg. So many people had different views of the Earth. And let's not even talk about the turtle upon the turtle upon the turtle upon the turtle. A lot of people had different ideas of what the Earth was like, and they just did it based upon what they could understand at the time. In fact, here's some old maps of what they thought the world was like. Since a lot of things kind of revolved around Central Asia and Europe and Egypt area, this was the modern day world. And this was their map because nothing existed beyond that, because to travel to these different locations much farther meant you had to cross a vast ocean, which you may not be able to traverse the ocean and come back within a lifetime. Plus you had the only modern means of transportations was caravans, was horses, camels, ships. That was your modern day transportation. And those versions of transportation took a long time to travel from city to city. Sometimes it took months. So it was understandable that the ancient people thought the world was flat because of how far they could travel. So what changed? Well, it started with the Greek Revolution, where they were trying to understand the properties of our world. And Aristotle looked at the moon during a lunar eclipse, and he noticed the Earth's shadow being cast onto the moon and had a circular shape. Now, many people understand that when you cast your own shadow, it creates a silhouette of you, your shape, your body type, and everything. So the essence of you. Well, the same thing goes with a lunar eclipse. When the sun is light onto the Earth and casts a shadow onto the moon, it creates that shadow, which is the essence of the Earth. So given the shape that it had on the moon, it was kind of circular in shape. Not triangle, not hexagon, not diamond shaped, a circle. So therefore, Aristotle concluded that our Earth had to be some type of circular sphere of some kind, like a ball. And even other Copernican revolution during that time, they understood that, okay, if our Earth is a sphere, they would look towards the ships that were sailing out towards the horizon and notice that the ship was slowly sinking down like it was being sunk into the ocean, when in actuality it was not. It was just representing the curvature of our Earth. And in the late Middle Ages, they started to use some of the modern versions of spherical geometry and understanding how our universe works. And it was for over 2,000 years that we have understood that our planet was a sphere. In fact, It was Aristophanes, a Greek philosopher, who gave us roughly what the circumference of the Earth was. He lived in a city called Syene, and he noticed that on one particular day of the year, the light from the sun would shine directly down to the bottom of the well. Like he could see the sun in the well, which, as for many of you that have wells, to be able to see light at the bottom of the well is incredibly difficult because the wells are so deep. Yet he could see the sun being reflected in the bottom of the water. But when a couple of years later, when he traveled to Alexandria to visit the library at Alexandria to keep learning more and more about our world, he noticed that on that same day, a column, which he thought, oh, the sun should be just directly above it, and there should be no shadow. But it did indeed cast a shadow. So he concluded that maybe there was an arc between these two places. So he measured it with the different angles and everything and calculated the circumference of our Earth. And he was within 5% accuracy of what our true circumference is. Now, many people think, oh, 5%, oh, that's way off. Well, keep in mind, between 3 and 5% is human error. And he didn't have electronic equipment. He didn't have surveying equipment. He didn't have satellites. All he had was the measurement of his strides and geometry. And he calculated this, which is brilliant. But believe it or not, there are still people who still believe that our Earth is flat. This concept started roughly in about 1956 with Samuel Shenton, who founded the Flat Earth Society, who honestly did believe that, oh, our Earth isn't spherical in shape, it's a flat disk. And it gained a little steam for this society, but then it slowly started to die off around about 1971 after the death of Samuel Shenton. It wasn't until roughly about 2004 with Daniel Shenton, no relation, but it just happens they have the same last name, that he published a website promoting flat Earth. And because of the internet boom, this surged. This concept and idea surged throughout the internet. And as many of you understand, throughout the internet, once you place an idea, it spreads like wildfire, and it just blossomed. And even today, the current president of the Flat Earth Society is Mark Surgeon, who is a programmer, and honestly, he believes that NASA was founded for the sole purpose of keeping the idea that our Earth is flat a secret. That it was to promote having a spherical Earth, and that we're making hoaxes about going to space and everything, and that it was to keep a secret. If I may step on my soapbox for just a tad bit, as an astronomer and a scientist who's passionate about space and astronomy, allow me to say that for those of us that are passionate about our field and we discover something new, we can't keep it a secret. We are so giddy about wanting to share it with the world. It's like, wow, people, this is really cool. You got to check this out. So the concept of having a organization founded for people to keep secrets, that many of which are scientists, some of which I know and are just as passionate about the field as I am, they're just as bad as me for keeping secrets, because I can't count to you the number of times I get emails from my friends saying, oh wow, check this out, this really cool new video I got from this one satellite, and they share it with me because they know I'm exactly passionate about it. So if they're passionate about it and they can't keep it a secret, I can't keep it a secret. And you're talking about thousands of employees. You're telling them to keep it secret. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. Okay, off my soapbox. But you have celebrities and actors and pro sports athletes and even phenomenal daredevils that still believe in this concept. One of the famous examples is Mike Hughes, who built his own rocket and was planning to launch up into space to prove that the Earth was indeed flat. Sadly, the rocket launch didn't go as planned. So this is what they believe the modern view of the Earth is. It's basically this flat disk with the sun about 32 miles wide and is 3,000 miles above the Earth, and the moon is about the same size. And they orbit around like this, with the North Pole in the center, the continents laid out on a flat disk, and Antarctica is this huge ice wall that encompasses the entire globe. And that the stars are on this spherical disk that are fixed up in space. It basically kind of looks like a miniature version of a planetaria. And for somebody who does work in a planetarium, I have to say that a planetarium replicates what you can see up in the sky, but it doesn't duplicate. Replicate means to show something and to model it, whereas in duplicate it means making it exact. So it's not the same. We, in the planetarium, try to model what goes on in our universe up onto the dome, and it's sometimes very difficult to do what's in real life, but we do our best. So to have a concept based around a planetarium where we know that, okay, this is just a model, a makeup, and you're creating a actual physical thing and saying this is the real thing, is like, that's kind of hard. So allow me to present some evidence to show that our Earth is indeed a beautiful sphere. So first off, let's take a look at our solar system. All the heavenly bodies, all the different planets and dwarf planets, all are spherical in shape. Yet our Earth is a disk. So why is it all the other planets are spheres but our Earth is a disk? So is our sun a disk? Is our moon a disk? That starts getting weird really quickly, especially for the math in terms of figuring out how the tides work, plus the math to try to figure out how solar fusion works if it's a disk. It's crazy. So the concept that every other celestial body is spherical in shape, but yet our Earth is a flat disk, that's odd. Plus, you have to get into the concept of gravity. Now, yes, there are celestial bodies that are potato-shaped and weird-shaped, and it has to deal with gravity. Gravity is a central force, and it's based upon mass. The more mass you have, the more gravity you will have. Believe it or not, you have gravity. Very, very, very minute kind of gravity, but gravity nonetheless, because you do have a mass. And it's based upon the gravitational constant, the masses of the two bodies orbiting each other, plus the distance between them. In the case of our Earth, it deals with the mass of our Earth plus anything that could go into orbit around it. That's how we measure gravity. Our gravity here on Earth is roughly around about 9.8 meters per second squared. And believe it or not, we've taken pictures from space. We have gone up into the unknown and taken a beautiful look back at our planet, and we see the beautiful curve of our Earth. Now, many flat earthers will say, oh, that's just the edge of our Earth. Okay, we took it a step further. We went to the moon, and we took a beautiful picture of our blue marble. And they said these pictures are fake because we never did land on the moon. Now, there's a whole long pieces of evidence to prove that we did indeed go to the moon, and I can cover that in another video if people are interested. But to make one quick point, to fake going to the moon, just the amount of budget it would take to fake going to the moon in terms of videography, the lighting and everything, it would cost more than every country's budget combined, which means everybody across the globe would have to pull their money together to work together to keep it a secret. And considering we're in the COVID mess right now and not everybody's working together to help fight COVID, you're expecting everybody to keep a secret. And again, scientists don't keep secrets. So we did it. So rather than trying to fake it, why don't we just go to the moon? And we did go to the moon, and we took these beautiful shots. But let's look at some other further evidence. Lunar eclipses. We have taken beautiful images, not just the ancient drawings, but we've taken beautiful images of lunar eclipses. And it's our Earth. You can see the curve of our Earth over these three images. Well, they say, well, that's just a flat disk. Okay, let's just keep going then. They say basically you get the phases of the moon and the lunar eclipses based upon this shadow object that goes in orbit around the sun. I have yet to take a picture of this shadow object in space. And even some of the brilliant scientists and telescopes across the globe have yet to take a picture of this shadow object. Okay, let's go on to the next. Curvature of the Earth. Our Earth is curved. This is a picture of the Thornton Bank wind farm, pardon me, and it's off the Belgian coast. And since it's so far away, they took pictures through a telescope with it, and you could see the beautiful tall wind turbines below the horizon. And if many of you have seen turbines when you're going out driving through the country, they're pretty tall. So the fact that these look like they're dipping below on the horizon, which many good engineers know you never build them that close to the water, it just shows that our Earth is indeed curved. In fact, in 2008, the Independent Investigations Group did this kind of same experiment for the Flat Earth Society, where they took a ship and they put up a sail in the middle of the ship that had tally marks to indicate how far it looked like the ship has sailed through. And they went out towards a channel, and they sent out the modern ship with a turbine engine out as far as it can go. And they noticed over time with different pictures from this investigations group that the sail looked like it was dipping below the horizon, and you could see the lines as they slowly disappear. And sadly, the Flat Earth Society still didn't believe it was true. They thought it was just heat waves and things like that. Next, you have to talk about solar energy. For those of us that are invested in solar panels, you have to depend upon solar energy. Now, if you change the model of our sun, that's going to create some problems because our sun is powered by nuclear fusion. It's not just a heat source or a flaming ball in the sky. It's a miasma of incandescent plasma. It's basically charged particles ramming together to form light, heat, and energy. And the average energy output from the sun here on Earth, with our sun and our Earth model to date, is roughly about 1,300 watts per meter squared. So to calculate this power, we basically have to take the luminosity of the sun as it is and divide it by the distance it is squared from the Earth. So if we plug in with the original model of the Earth and the sun being flat and the sun being roughly about 32 miles in diameter and about 300,000 miles above the Earth's surface, if you calculated that either the solar power is way off, assuming that the luminosity of the sun stays the same, that means we are not getting the same amount of power, or we basically have a miniature white dwarf where it's incredibly bright. And last time I checked, the brightness of the sun hasn't changed. So that means something is off in terms of the power output from solar energy. And next, weather. Oh, meteorologists had a heyday trying to explain how a flat Earth would not work. The amount of air pressure given across a sphere is uniform. And if the air pressure was just on a flat disk, you would be crushed flat in some areas and you wouldn't feel anything on different parts of the area because air pressure due to gravity is centralized. So at the North Pole, towards the center of the flat Earth, you would be crushed flat. Whereas then towards the outer edges on Antarctica, you wouldn't be able to breathe at all. And last time I checked, there were people that had visited the North Pole and stationed there, and they weren't crushed flat. Also, rain would fall sideways. It wouldn't fall straight down, it would fall sideways. And you can forget about a jet stream because the jet stream is created by the Coriolis effect, which is caused by the Earth spinning. And with the sun being so tiny, you would get extreme temperatures. You would get freezing at night and hot during the day, especially when it deals with air pressure, because our air pressure is what helps us retain our heat, as well as the amount of carbon dioxide and aerosols that are in our atmosphere. And also you have the problem with the ocean currents, which also depend upon the Coriolis effect. And people have done models just based upon the wind sails on the surface of the Earth, not based upon space satellites, but they have done that too. And last but not least, the flat Earth model basically accounts for CO2 levels being like ridiculously high. And we have measured those amounts and they are off. Now, let's talk about seasons. Normally, seasons are created by the Earth's tilt, which is roughly about 23.5 degrees. Now, with a flat Earth, there's no tilts, which means there's no seasons. There's no equinoxes. And I know for a fact that we have these beautiful equinoxes and these beautiful solstices. In fact, people from around the world enjoy these events. Last but not least, you have the Aurora. The Aurora are mirrored. So when you have the Aurora Borealis, you have the Aurora Australis, which are identical. They're just mirrored in opposite directions. But the map only shows the North Pole. So where are you getting the Aurora Australis? It definitely can't be just around the edges. Plus, our magnetic field is what creates the aurora. So if the North Pole represents the north of the magnet, where's the south end of the magnet? It kind of would be weird to have it around the circle around the edge, because usually when we think of a magnet, there's a North Pole and a South Pole. And we've taken pictures of aurora in space. And yes, they can say, oh, this is a hoax, but I'm sorry, but this is a really cool shot. And last but not least, the proper motion of the stars. They talk about basically stars being these fixed points of light, when in actuality, the stars are not fixed at all. There have been recordings of the constellations looking different over the course of years because the stars in our galaxy move. They move in their own unique path, and so over the course of thousands of years, our constellations are going to look very different. So that changes our view a lot. So these are some strong pieces of evidence to show that our Earth is a beautiful sphere, that we are a beautiful blue marble that goes around our sun, and our sun goes around the center of our galaxy. So that's my 2-piece of information for there. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comments below. If there's a topic you would like for me to cover over, I would be happy to. Leave it down in the comments below as well. If you would love a live presentation of a sky tonight, just let me know, and we can definitely arrange something if it's popular with people. Also, if you are interested in some fun activities for your kids, futurereadysa.org is a wonderful website that basically allows your kids to stay educated throughout the summertime, because I know a lot of activities have been canceled, such as sports, outdoor recreation, and things like that due to COVID-19. So futurereadysa.org allows opportunities for kids to be able to collect badges on fun activities that they could do from home. And if you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, never stop learning.